As you may know, in early January 2021, the Iranian government issued an Interpol red notice for then US President Donald Trump for the murder of General Soleimani back in 2019. This is super illegal. So, number one, what is a red notice? A red notice, in Interpol terms, is, like many things in international law, number one, not legally binding. It's a mere request for law enforcement agencies across the world to pursue and detain the individual named in a red warrant. So just because Interpol issued it does not mean that all of a sudden every single law enforcement agency in the world is required to pursue and attempt to arrest Trump. However, just because the red notice is not legally binding does not mean that the actions of the Iranian government were not super illegal. And there is settled case law, international case law, about this, and this case, like many cases that involve immunity of some kind, come back to the 2002 arrest warrant case, or the Yerodia case, as it's sometimes known, involving a conflict between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Belgium. Now, while the case itself is somewhat complex, the main gist of it is that it was illegal for Belgium to issue an arrest warrant, even a domestic arrest warrant, for Mr. Yerodia because he was, at the time of the issuance of the arrest warrant, the Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Congo. And it didn't even matter that nobody had acted on the arrest warrant, and it didn't matter that Mr. Yerodia had been inside Belgian territory and the Belgian police had also not done anything. It was the mere fact that the arrest warrant was issued that created a situation of illegality. And that was the ruling of the International Court of Justice. The same applies here for the Iranian Trump arrest warrant and red notice. Even though, in all likelihood, nothing will be done because of this arrest warrant, the mere fact that the Iranians issued the arrest warrant while Trump was the head of government of the United States creates a violation of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. And what's even weirder is that there would be no consequence whatsoever for the Iranians if they were to retract the arrest warrant and then reissue it immediately after. But the fact that it was issued while Trump was president makes it in and of itself illegal if we follow the precedent set by Congo versus Belgium. Another important thing is that it's possible that Trump's immunity for this case has expired. To recap, it's important that we consider the two types of immunity that are afforded to these high-ranking government officials. The first one, which Trump was under up until midday, noon, on January 20th, was immunity ratione personae. This is immunity that arises purely by virtue of the office that an individual holds. So just by virtue of being the head of government of the United States, Trump was afforded this immunity, meaning that he was inviolable, at least by foreign executive organs. Of course, that doesn't mean that he was not subject to removal or arrest or indictment or prosecution by United States government organs, but when within the jurisdiction of foreign governments, he was totally immune. Even after he leaves office, or even after he left office, Trump still does fall under the second type of immunity, and that is immunity ratione materiae. This kind of immunity occurs for actions that are necessary for the continued execution of the duties of an office. So, in a very simple sense, if Trump had, for example, gotten a speeding ticket while in office in a foreign country because he was running late to a meeting in a different country, then he would not be liable for prosecution in all likelihood for that speeding ticket because he was performing an action that was necessary for the continued execution of his office. However, it's very much up in the air if this kind of extrajudicial murder falls within the category of things you need to do for the execution of the office of the President of the United States. And if a court rules that this does not count as one of the protected actions, then it would be fully possible for the police of a foreign state, or even, in theory, the United States, to execute this arrest warrant and detain ex-President Trump. Of course, in terms of likelihood, this is incredibly implausible. Now, I said that the Iranian arrest warrant was super illegal, but what are the consequences of this illegal action? Probably nothing. because the only way that the U.S. would be able to seek remedy, which the U.S. can still seek remedy, because the action was illegal and the arrest warrant is still active, the state of illegality continues, in theory. Because the only way that the U.S. would be able to get remedy for this illegal act would be to take the Iranian government, would be to take Iran to the International Court of Justice. And neither the U.S. nor Iran have accepted the compulsory jurisdiction of the ICJ, which means that any kind of court case between the two of them would arise from mutual consent to, for the purposes of that case and only of that case, submit to the jurisdiction of the ICJ. And this is unlikely. And if it went to court, it wouldn't even really be that much of an issue, because we know that issuing an arrest warrant for an incumbent Minister for Foreign Affairs is illegal. It's not even a question of whether or not issuing an arrest warrant for an incumbent president would be illegal. The Iranians are definitely in the wrong, so they wouldn't even want to go to court. So, like most things that are technically nominally illegal under international law, this is likely to lead to not much happening. The arrest warrant, in all likelihood, will not be executed, and even if the arrest warrant is executed, which is, again, super unlikely, it would be unlikely that the Iranians would consent to being part of a trial in the ICJ. But do remember, if you end up being part of the Department or Ministry of Justice for a country, and you get asked to issue an arrest warrant for a sit-in president, or some other head of state or head of government, or for a foreign minister, it's super illegal and you should not do it.